Hey guys, what is up? It's TotalXclipse here, and today I have finally finished my build walkthrough, my build guide. It's not really a guide, it's more my attempt at building my PC, which obviously you can see it went well because my computer's working, but it has taken a while to get through and actually sort it out. It's taken a hell of a lot of time and there were lots of problems along the way. So I thought I'd share with you the whole process, show you things that went wrong, things that I might do differently, and basically how easy it is to build a computer from having no idea whatsoever what you're doing. So jumping straight in, we're going to look at the parts I have. First off, let's start with the motherboard. I went with the Asus Pros Gaming Z170 gaming motherboard. To be honest, it works perfectly well. I've been able to overclock my computer with it. I've also been able to do everything that I wanted despite it being budget orientated, and do highly recommend it to anyone who is looking to start a build themselves. Then we have the CPU. I went with the i7 6700K. Now I wanted to go with an Intel chip because I have been going with the FX series and wanted a computer that was really high specs. I wanted to be able to play VR and also games potentially in the future in 4K. So I thought I'd go with the i7, knowing that Intel had good background. Another big choice, a decider, was choosing between the i5 6600K and the i7 6700K, and I chose the i7 because it's not just for gaming. I do a lot of video editing, obviously for YouTube and other projects that I like to have a go at. Now I went with a K processor because I wanted to be able to overclock my CPU. Now going with both the Pro Gaming motherboard and the i7 6700K processor, I wanted to get some RAM that was best suited for the role, and I went with the DDR4 2x8GB sticks of Corsair low profile RAM. Now this is perfect for my gaming, and it also works really well with my processing and things like my video editing, for example. And the great thing about the motherboard is that it actually allows for 4 sticks, so I can upgrade that should the need arise to 32GB, which I will probably be doing within the next few months. I should imagine maybe the next year. Now with this computer, I wanted it to be able to boot up quickly, so I went with an SSD drive to have my boot drive. This also holds the majority of my games as well. It's 240GB and works perfectly well. I also have 2 hard drives. One's a 1TB and the second one's 2TB in size. Now there are 3 other parts that are key components. In fact, there are 4. There is definitely a 4th one which I almost forgot about, but we will talk about that one last of all. So the first component is the Neptune 240M CPU cooler. That is a water-cooled closed-loop system. The second thing that we have also is the power supply. Now the power supply I don't want to scrimp on. I went with an 800-watt R3 fractal design PSU, and it is beautiful and works a dream. It is actually a platinum edition version, which means it is the highest rated efficiency for an 800-watt PSU. Now the 2 other parts, the last part that's actually to do with the function of the PC is my graphics card. Now I went with the GTX 980 Ti Palette Super Jetstream, and I got it for a really good deal. I was considering going with a Pascal chip and just waiting the extra few months, and to a certain extent I am kicking myself over it. I could have just kept my old graphics card and waited until now to go straight to the GTX 1080, but to be fair, I can play my virtual reality games with it perfectly fine. Now the case, and this is the final part of the build, is my pride and joy. I'm so glad I went with it. It is the Corsair 760T, and it's a white case, windowed, and it has sliding doors. Well, I say sliding doors. You can remove the window quite easily. It's just on a hinge, and you can remove it off the hinge quite easily, which makes it brilliant for first-time builders. There's plenty of size. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of airflow, and it just looks gorgeous, especially with the LEDs inside, as I'm sure I will show you an image of my computer in a bit. Now, the important bit, building it. Now, this was an experience in itself, but I will let you watch the video and find out. First things first, we're going to remove the CPU, push down slightly, and pull it this way. There we go, and that releases the CPU header. Okay, so here we go. We have the i7 6700K, and now we're going to, I've not been paying attention, slowly place this like so. So once you've placed the CPU on the motherboard, in its little socket, bring that down. With the CPU in place, we can now move that. I was a bit worried that there was a bit too much force on. I think we're okay. So next up, we're doing the Corsair Vengeance DDR4 memory. It's one of the more simpler jobs to do. It's 2400 megahertz, and it's the LPX low profile memory. Now, when you're using the Asus Pro Gaming motherboard, you have 4 DDR4 slots. You want to use first the 2 grey slots, and then have a 1 single clip on each side, so you just push them up, and then match the little, I don't know if you can see that, little notches along with the board, so that would be this way around. And then slowly lower into place, and it should click in like so. And do that with the second one. You want to use those 2 channels first, simply because they run in dual channels. So don't use a black and a grey or the 2 blacks. Now next off, we're going to install the motherboard into the actual case, simply because I want to be able to put the bracket on for the water cooler and get that set up, which is going to be fun. Right, so for the next part of this, we're going to install the motherboard into the case, but the first thing I want to do, place that on there, it will be okay. I want to put the I/O shield on. Now the great thing about this case is that you can quite easily pull off the doors. It's not any unscrewing, really nice and simple, which is something that really helps, especially when you're a first time builder like me. Now we're going to install this the right way, so keep it all in line with what you've got there, and place this just on the inside here. Just make sure that's fully in place. I shall show you now, as you probably didn't see any of that. Just clicking that into position. You've got it here. That's this. Just to stop any static going through and damaging your components. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is grab the motherboard very carefully, and we are going to lower it onto the standoffs. So we don't want to get the board, well, we don't want to short the board once we actually install it. Right, so once they're on the standoffs, you need to get your screws. And when you're installing this, I don't know if you can see, but you need to go from opposite corners as to slowly and equally release the pressure on the board rather than all on one side, which might warp it and damage it. So now that we've got the motherboard inside the case, what we're going to do is install the water cooler bracket, which I have here. Now the problem I've encountered, I wanted to place it this way around and have the wires running behind and then up, which would sacrifice a bit of heat will sacrifice a bit of lower temperature for the other components, but it would keep it out of the way and it would look pretty cool. And that is the reason why I had these two cables coming out this side, because they would be through the back of the motherboard. Now the problem is these are 140mm fans, and unless I want to remove them and put in 120mm fans, these screws are going to go into the fan. So what we're having to do is to place this in this location here, which is all well and good, except now I've got these cables in the way. So what I'm going to do, and I'll show you as I do it, is just turn the fans around so that the wires are on the underside. Right, so for the next part of this, I have the bracket. I've just attached, oh well, you can see it here, can't you? Just attached the Intel adaptation rather than the AMD version. What we're going to do is stick this through the board now on this side. I just want to check I've got plenty of headroom. Yeah, and then we can turn that around. Okay. For the next part of this, we're going to install the CPU cooler. Right, so the problem that I've encountered is was a bit frustrating. Problem is, with this case, these small screws go actually straight through the there we go, straight through the holders, and I thought maybe we could mount it here and hope for the best. Okay, we're gonna just go ahead. I've got a feeling it's not gonna work unless I mount it slightly on the wong, so we're just gonna have a little bit of a play around here. Really not happy about that. Right, so thankfully I have found 4 screws supplied by Corsair for fan mounting, and so if all goes well, I'm going to install the CPU cooler using those fans, because essentially it is a fan. And it's working so far. I just need to make sure I've got all my screws in the right areas. Now for this part, we don't want too much thermal compound on it. And I'm actually going to, let's just remove that, do a little X. So X marks the spot. Oh, this always gets me nervous. Say this always gets me nervous, I've never done before. A little X, simply because that's what gives you the best spread. Crisis averted. So we're finally getting there with this. A bit of trouble getting the CPU cooler on correctly at first. Now we're just tightening it down as it seems to be right. Famous last words really, isn't it? Right, so I'm back. What I've just done is neaten the cables so I can plug them in. So we've got the two CPU fan headers plugged in, and I've plugged the two fans together. But that's all we've done so far since I switched off the video for dinner. Now what we're going to do is input the power supply, the PSU, and it's going to be pretty simple. I mean, there's not much that can go wrong, right? So what we're going to do is grab this CPU here, the Fractal Design. Then let's just remove that to make it slightly easier for us. We're just going to place it in here. I think having the exhaust shooting downwards is going to be our best bet. I'm just going to move this over here and take the fan PSU screws, and we're just going to screw in the 4 screws here. So again, we're just going to screw in opposites first. Thinking about it, I should probably put in the extra power cords that I need first. See, other than worrying about the odd thing, it's actually quite easy, he says, to build a computer. If it doesn't switch on, I will probably cry. We're going to plug that lot in a bit. I think next we will maybe stick the SSD in, and the reason I'm not plugging everything in just yet, so you know, is other than the CPU fan connector, I want to do this all together so that I can make it look really neat and not have to worry about trying to squeeze other wires through other wires. If I can do it all at once, it's going to be much easier for me, or at least that's the idea. I've got all these to sort through as well. How I love my life. Right, so next on our list, what we're going to do is install an SSD. Well, mount an SSD. We're not going to install anything just yet. So, on the behind side of the case, the back side, behind side, who knows what we call it. We have, oh come on, let me again. We have plenty of SSD mounting cages. There's 3 there, not a 4th one. And we also have plenty of room for all of our cable management, which we're going to sort out later. So what we're going to need to do is grab our SSD. If we stick it, he says, I think it'll be pretty obvious. So there we go. And you just got my face the whole time, didn't you? Right, as you can see, I'll just move that across. We've installed the SSD here. It was pretty simple, just pull this down and insert. For this case, it's a toolless drive bay. What we're going to do is insert the SATA cable. So we got provided with a couple more, which are also black and white, which we will probably use on our build, seeing as it goes much better than the blue ones. But again, we're not going to do that just yet. The next thing that we are going to install, well, mount, it's only really the graphics card that we have left to add, and then the HDD, which I don't want to do just yet. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to wire this all up for now, and then we'll do the graphics card last of all. I'm just going to clear everything first so that we have a clean space to work from. Right, so what we're going to do here very quickly is just put the fan connectors all into their allotted slots. So we've got one fan here which needs to go into this fan. We also have two here. One needs to go here and the other one needs to go here. Now we're going to try and do this neat, so I'm thinking with this one we're going to run it behind and then back up the actual motherboard. So that is something that really I should have thought about. Right, so now we're going to put in the actual PSU 12 volt ATX, which is that one, and the 24 pin, which is that one. And we're going to feed them around the back, nice and quickly, providing nothing goes wrong. So what we're doing, I know it's all changed a lot, we're just going to install a hard drive. It's really simple. All you need to do is pull out a hard drive bay if it's toolless. Some will require you to screw them in along here. But you just place them into the two holes, same on the other side. Make sure it's all in so you've got that slide. And for this case, all you need to do is slide it back in the drive bay, like so, and now it's locked into place. Then what we need to do, it's just a matter of plugging your SATA cable into the back of your hard drive, like so, and wait for the little click. Last one. Now really, I should have done this when I was doing the graphics card. Might help if I go this way around. So you can see my lovely hairdo. Just gonna plug it into that one. And that is how you plug in your hard drive into your actual computer. So that was the whole process of me building my computer. Here's a couple of pictures from before. As you can see, this is where I had all my stuff laid out. Unfortunately, the video filming was terrible. The audio was just horrendous. I couldn't use it. But there's a picture of all the items. And then we also have what it's like now on my nice white desk. We have a nice PC setup. The black and white, really, it's monochrome looks really good in this setup, I think, and it really works well with the blue lights as well. Anyway guys, if you did enjoy the video, please like it. If you want to see more, obviously subscribe, and if you have any questions about builds in the future, feel free to ask me. I may not be a super expert, but I do know a fair few things now. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.